Thank you. I think, can I turn around? Is it? Okay. Yeah. I was saying, as the end of this episode was playing, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, thank you so much for coming, because you can watch this at home on Netflix. so
But
thank
they don't
you.
get to see you at home, you know, that's
Well,
special.
that's why I'm saying thank you.
Well, it's quite an episode. How did you initially get involved with it, get cast in this role?
In the way that things sort of like uncommonly happen, which is that Joe Wright, the director, reached out to me through my reps. We had a general meeting like 10 years prior. And nothing, came of that in terms of work or anything like that. And he came on as the director, and there was just a treatment, and he said that he thought of me, and so he reached out to me and said, there's this treatment for Black Mirror, which I knew Black Mirror, and said, we're going to be shooting in like 6 weeks, so you sort of have to say yes based off of a treatment, which is like not a problem. I mean, this is Black Mirror. So, and Joe Wright. So yeah, and then after the, like 4 weeks later, after the holidays, there was this script and there were no changes. So that's really something that's smooth and that's sort of like, out of the blue is wonderful.
Yeah.
So cool.
And is it true that you had just joined social media a few weeks before you started filming this?
Yeah, 2 weeks. I had just joined social media, and I was so freaked out about it. I feel hypocritical speaking in the past tense because it is like it continues to be like this thing that's sort of like I have this like constant low grade anxiety, which this episode demonstrates that we're not alone at all in feeling that anxiety. So I had joined social media. And very cautiously and nervously, and then I got this treatment, and it was good timing.
Yeah. Did it change your attitude at all? I mean, did it make you any less or more anxious having done this episode to then go back onto social media and manage your various profiles?
I think it must. It must have. Like I have 2 kids, and I'm going to show them this episode before I let them join social media. So it is a cautionary tale, and it certainly. I remember sort of like consciously, Joe doesn't have his phone on set, and I normally don't bring my phone on set, but I had never done a movie while being on social media. But I think I was a little protected because I was like, oh, it's like for sure not cool for me to have like a social media addiction, like on set for Nosedive, which is about this. So I think in a way like it's I didn't get absorbed into it as quickly, I think, as folks say that they typically do. Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge about this role? Was it physical, or was it more emotional, the hardest part of embodying this character?
What was difficult? What was difficult? It was, gosh, it was kind of, I think it was just for me mostly about endurance, because as I'm sure you guys know, television is faster than movies, and this in the scheme of things was like a more comfortable schedule than a typical TV schedule. But we would shoot 6 days a week, and then on the 7th day they couldn't like technically ask for a rehearsal. So I would just be like, hey, let's everyone come to my apartment and join me while I'm working on the script. And so every Sunday we would rehearse for the following week. So it felt fast and furious. And there were very specific, very big choices that were made. And it wasn't at the time like I felt total freedom, and it was like sort of it felt a little bit more akin to when I have had the chance to work with like Lars von Trier, when I was doing experimental avant-garde, which means naked theater in New York. and and it wasn't until afterwards that I started to be like, oh my gosh, when I walked, I like intentionally made sure my like ponytail like swang. Like that's like not, that's is that honest? Like, so I think it was more whenever you sort of do something that's a little like quick, that can be sort of scary.
Did you have a favorite scene to play in this episode?
Oh, I mean, like for sure the wedding scene, like the wedding scene, like definitely.
And why was it so much fun to do that scene in particular?
Because I was the only one talking.
That's an honest answer. Yeah.
I mean, it's because it was an opus, and we can all do that. We just don't like always get the material. We oftentimes don't get the material to do that. So, to get to be the actor in that scene, and that scene had something that is my, like, weirdly, I don't know, it's like I fetishize this. My most favorite thing to do in movies, which is to have a very like extremely technically difficult scene in terms of movie making. So where you have to like in The Help, the pie scene was technically super difficult because the way that they were shooting it is they would pan down and look at the pie, and they would come up, and then they would like switch the pie while I was up, and then like pan down again, and then we would have to like pause, and like I would need to like move the pie when they would like go over to Octavia, and it was this weird, it was like, I remember like at one point it was really hot and we're in like Greenwood, Mississippi, and Octavia's like, why is this so damn hard? Like it's just, I mean, it was really, it was kind of crazy. So the wedding scene had this, the way we were shooting was we had a 360 camera. And we just had really precise blocking and precise setups, and I just like when blocking gets complicated, I just feel alive. And when I need to sort of like put to use like the dweeby like film things and tricks that I've gotten to see over the years, see actors implement themselves over the years, like that's really fun for me. So that was sort of, that scene was incredibly technical, and I loved it.
I also love the scene with Cherry Jones. What was it like working with her, particularly as that character?
Yeah. So Cherry Jones, she's in high school. She was the person whose like picture was up on my wall. In addition to like Keanu Reeves and Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt in Legends of the Fall, of course. And I'm like, I don't want to forget anyone. Like, I don't want to offend any of my like childhood like crushes. No, I think I covered everyone. But Cherry Jones was also on that wall, and for a different reason. And it was just, I was when I was in high school, she was, as she continues to do so now, working a lot in theater, and I would come in on the train from Westchester and go to TKTS and watch her performances. And when I got cast in The Village, which was my first movie, Cherry was in it as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, she was the one that I was most excited about, no question. And we had this scene that was sort of this like pivotal scene for this character, which was basically, in essence, it's like, basically it's saying like, you know, like, man up. Pretty much, or like, you can do it. And so we had that scene, and at the time I remember just being like, it was like she was feeling it on a more personal level than it's just the scene. And then weirdly, we haven't seen each other in a million zillion years. And I was at the Critics' Choice Awards, which was a couple, or not even a couple months, a couple weeks before I was leaving to go do this. And I saw her across the room, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Cherry. And I was like freaking out. And so I was like making my way over like through the room, and like during like commercial breaks, I would like get a little bit further, and then I would like duck. And then I would get distracted and like see someone. So it was like sort of this like epic journey to Cherry Jones. And finally I got to her, and you know, I was so happy. And the first thing that she said was, she was like, Bryce, I'm going to be in the Black Mirror episode. And I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah, I'm going to do that scene with the truck driver. And I burst into tears, like really like, you know, like really like intense. And then, you know, and then I had to like run away during another commercial break to the bathroom to figure things out. But I think she's, you know, we all have those actors who are artists that sort of mean something, and you can't really explain why. I think there's an honesty to Cherry, and a purity with the way that she works without any pretense at all. And so to get to do this scene with her again, it felt a little like, you know, it felt again bigger than, it felt more personal. So that's my Cherry Jones story.
You mentioned growing up outside the city. You grew up in a family of actors. Your grandfather, your uncle, I think your dad might have acted at one point.
I'm like, oh yeah, he did.
Did you ever consider doing anything other than acting?
Oh yeah. I didn't. It's weird. It's like I keep sort of like challenging this memory that I have of my decision-making process, because it seems so like it doesn't totally make sense. So I like, it didn't occur to me that like I guess I knew acting was a profession, but it wasn't really until high school, and I grew up on sets, and I loved crews. I love feeling like I was a part of a crew. The acting thing seemed a little like, I don't know, too precious. Like I was sort of like, ooh, what is that like supernatural thing happening in the corner? So I would steer clear of the actors at all times. But I think I started like I have a really good friend who was my best friend when I was growing up, and I would follow her no matter what she would do. And so she would go to like academic camp, and I would be like, I'm academic also now. And so I would go to like, I went to like academic camp for years at like Vassar College, like during the summer, and in like 7th grade. Like this, I was not in 11th grade. And then she decided to go to Stage Door Manor, and oh, Jody, hi! So I followed my friend to Stage Door Manor, where Jody directed a play that I was in, Cry Havoc. Which was an awesome experience, which was like my first, it was like a precursor to The Help, like a bunch of ladies together. It was awesome. But when I went to Stage Door Manor, I was 15 years old. And like when I was at academic camp, I didn't think of doing like theater, and there was a theater program. But when I went to Stage Door, because my friend was doing this, I was like, oh, cool. And I joined in, and then I happened to get a good part in Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was opposite Natalie Portman, because 15-year-old Natalie Portman, I guess, like Beautiful Girls and Heat and The Professional are not quite enough. Like you need to go to like summer camp in the Catskills where you do like a play, like a broken down theater. Like she's like that's how awesome she is. She's like got her priorities straight. So because I think we were in a play, and because Natalie was working professionally, I was sort of like, oh, cool. Like, oh, that's awesome. You can be an actor. And then it kind of like grew from there. And then I started thinking more about being an actor. But I also really looked up to my grandparents, and they started giving me a lot of advice sort of around like when I was 16, 17. I think like that, like things sort of like got ramped up very quickly and suddenly. So it was a surprise to me.
And I've read that your parents kind of shielded you from show business in a way. I mean, obviously raising you outside of Hollywood. And you didn't even see Happy Days until you were much older?
Yeah, but it wasn't like a weird thing like you're not allowed to watch it. It was basically they just didn't do the weird thing of, oh, watch my show, like to their children. So yeah, no, I wasn't really, I mean, my dad is so low key. Have any of you guys ever like worked with him or had seen him at a Q&A or in person or something like that? And like he's so chill, right? So yeah. So there was a really good example of how to not be like over the top as an actor, I think. Did I end that sentence in the place that I started it? I don't know.
I think so.
Okay. Questioned it.
And Henry Winkler is your godfather?
Yes.
You didn't really know Fonzie, though.
Yes. Oh, it was about protecting from television. Yeah. So he's not gonna he's not a show off. He's not a show off. Yeah, Henry Winkler, who's like a sage. He is amazing. Amazing man. So it was like my dad was like the greatest person ever, is the greatest person ever. And he's like, just in case something happens, I nominate the next greatest human being on planet Earth to be your godfather. And I'm like, I'm so glad that you covered all those bases.
And yet, when you did start acting, you didn't use your last name for a while because you didn't want to sort of coast on the family rotation. Is that correct? You just went by Bryce Dallas?
Yeah, but it was really it was disingenuous because by then I was old enough to know, people don't hire people in front of the camera because they're related to someone. Like, the stakes are way too high. You know, like, what if it doesn't work and you have to cut that person out and, like, that day of shooting cost, like, $20,000, $50,000, $500,000. Like, it doesn't matter who anyone is related to. Might they get more opportunities? Like, absolutely. Yes. But it's not, like, the getting of the job isn't the case. And I knew that. And I sort of, at that time, I was like, I don't want to question that for myself, and I don't want others to question it either, like in my peer group, because I was leaving school, or I was auditioning while I was at NYU. And I got an agent because it was an assistant at more of a boutique agency, came and saw me in like a play at school. So it was a little, like, it was not totally, like, I had to go on a walkabout a little bit with that and figure out that, like, my parents at one point, so sad, they were like, well, we're just curious because, we just want to make sure that it's not because you're not proud to be in the family. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's like criminal. You're like, Howards, you're so lovely. Why would I not be proud of that?
Yeah. Well, this is something I read online, so it might be fake news, but is it true that you also thought Bryce Dallas kind of sounded like a porn star name?
Yeah. Yeah. It does.
I think you made the right choice. Yeah. So you did a lot of stage work in New York. Do you still get a chance to do it? Do you miss it? Do you think you'll go back to it?
I mean, it's in the scheme of things, like, not a lot. Like, it was like kind of all crammed in a condensed period of time in my life, where it was sort of like rehearsing one while performing another. I think that I do not plan on doing theater in the near future. But in the distant future, absolutely. I would love to. And I was in a theater company for a while called Theater Me Too. And the artistic director and founder is an incredible, inspiring man named Ruben Polendo. And so that's kind of, and that's kind of like a, sort of like, that is like avant-garde disruptive theater. So I think that's the sort of stuff that I like to do. But not in the near future, because I have young kids, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too hard of a schedule.
Well, it's like my husband is an actor, and it locks you down, sort of no matter what. And if my husband was traveling for something, and like we wanted to be together with the kids, it's sort of, you don't get to make a choice about it. But that's like the 3-year plan.
I know you had a few very small roles in a couple of your father's films. You were a Who in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Apollo 13. You also worked as a PA on Apollo 13. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what role got you your SAG card? Did those, or was it later
Yeah.
after you?
Okay. So it was more out of superstition than anything. My dad and my mom have been together since they were 16 years old, and so she's not an actress, but he like throws her in the background of all of his movies because he's been doing that since he was 16 years old. And so that sort of like happened with all the kids as well. So they would always just sort of like throw us in the background. So these like roles are not roles. It's like a blur situation where it's like, who's that like redhead? Oh, that's done. However, with the Grinch, I was going to NYU. And my dad has worked with the same kind of group of people quite consistently throughout the years in terms of the crew and the producers and all of that. And the line producer, this guy Todd Hollowell, I was going to come be in the background, and Todd knew that my dad, like the rule was that you weren't allowed to say anything. Like you weren't allowed to like cheat that. And Todd recommended that I go to second unit and I actually not shoot in the scene that my dad was directing. He was like, oh, it would be so great if I could have Bryce just in the background of the scene. I need someone that I know can like do this. And my dad was like, sure. And then Todd came up to me before the first take, and there was this like crane going by. And what did he say? What did he tell me to yell? He said, just yell something. And he was like, yell like Merry Christmas, or just like something like super generic. And he was like, you're gonna yell something, and I'm gonna pretend that like I didn't tell you to do that. And then someone's gonna come up to you with some paperwork. And that's how I got my SAG card. Yeah. Like I made some money on that. Residuals? Like I was like, that came at like the perfect moment because I was like 19 and passionate and in school and everything. But I was holding down a few jobs while I was at school. And these are like $15 an hour max, like these jobs. And I remember getting like my first residual check, and it was like hundreds of dollars. And I was like, you've got to fucking be kidding me. I was like, I'm going to work so much harder now in school.
Well, your film career sort of started in earnest after you were discovered in As You Like It. Is that correct?
Yeah.
A stage production. Night Shyamalan.
You did it.
Picked you for The Village and then also Lady in the Water. What was that transition like for you at that point?
Oh my gosh, that was just crazy. I'm gonna go see him. After this. He has a movie that he did called Splice, and it was the premiere tonight. And I skipped the premiere to be with you guys because I don't get to talk the whole time at the premiere. So, but and then I'm gonna go to the after party, and it's just like I was thinking about this, and like just Night and what a big deal what he did for me is. Yeah, he saw me in As You Like It, and I had actually, oh gosh, I love that you guys are actors. Okay, so I was in this. Okay. So, I have this like very weird pattern of people dropping out of like movies or projects or whatever, and I come in like a day before. And it doesn't always happen, but it's happened more often than I would have predicted. And in the case of As You Like It, I was 21, and and there was this production happening there, and the production had already happened, and so it was sort of like a restaging of this show, this version of As You Like It, and the lead actor, the lead actress, booked a pilot and had to like fly off to Los Angeles, and so with only, I think it was under a week. Oh my gosh, it was so little time. I got the part and needed to start performing Rosalind, which is the wordiest female role in all of Shakespeare, which is perfect for me because I love to talk. But but it was like this. It was sort of this like really intense. It was this really intense thing because I felt a lot of pressure, and she had done such a remarkable job when. Which I heard from everyone over and over and over again, and it was really difficult. Kind of like I just felt a little bit like I was sort of failing, like it was like a situation that no matter what I was going to sort of fail. But I kept trying and trying and trying and trying, and we got to opening night, and I did the show. And I felt like, yet again, I didn't get it. And was disappointed in myself, but I had been that way every single night. And it was the kind of disappointed in myself that you're like, well, I'm not nailing this. Like, okay, tomorrow. So I had that mentality. And then the next morning I woke up and I saw the review in the New York Times. And I'd never been singled out in any show, like good or bad. And basically what the review said was it's a wonderful production of As You Like It, the public theater. It's a shame about the Rosalind. And I remember reading it, and it doesn't feel awesome. But I kind of I needed to sort of, I kind of walked it off, and I was walking around, and I know I was going to eventually walk to the theater. And by the time I was sort of like 2/3 of the way to the theater, I was like, I'm okay. This is gonna be okay. I'm gonna keep working on this. I don't think they're gonna fire me. If they do, like they have just cause, and I know some of my limitations better. And yeah, I'm okay. And I remember kind of feeling that not resolve and sort of like, ooh, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Like this, like Lacey, where you're like convincing yourself and you're like totally lying to yourself and you're in denial. I was genuinely sort of like, yeah, this is fine. This is part of it. This is how it goes. And I got to the theater, and everyone was super supportive, and like I just kept trying, and I think it's sort of like it helped me a lot because it like the worst thing that at that point in my mind could happen to a young theater actor, like you're headlining a Shakespeare show at the Public, and like the New York Times like singles you out as like the problem of the show. Like that's bad. And the fact that I was okay, I was sort of like, oh, like I can have fun now. What's the harm? No one's expecting much. And like the guy who played Orlando, Lorenzo Piccioni, he was raised in the circus, and he would like kiss me, and he was super hot, and then he would do like a backflip. And that was fantastic. And about a week after we opened and this review came out, M. Night Shyamalan came and saw the play, and I recognized him. I saw him. I remember where he sat, and he was wearing a white shirt, and I remember seeing him, and I was obsessed with Unbreakable, obsessed. And I remember going backstage and thinking to myself, like, wouldn't it be so awesome if he, like, cast me as the lead of his next movie? Like, I had that delusional thought. And he waited afterwards and like introduced himself and his family, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And the show ended, and then I got a call like 3 weeks later through my agent, who's still my agent, and the call was that he wanted to go to lunch, and I sort of like cast out that delusional thought, and I thought it was because he wanted to, like a lot of people who have kids and are in the business say, like, what did your parents do? Like with schooling and travel and celebrity and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, he wants to ask about that. And I went to lunch, and he was sort of sharing stuff about his journey and where he was at. He was, I think, like 33 at the time. And he, like, in the middle, he was like, okay, so gosh, how do I say this? Like, I want you to be the lead of my next movie. And he, like, pushed a manila envelope over to me, and he was like, here's the script, and I'd love you to read it, and if you like it, like, the part is yours. And I looked at him, and I was like, don't you want me to audition? And he said, no, because, I don't think you'd be very good at auditioning. Which I wasn't at that point. I wasn't. I worked really hard at auditioning, and now I love auditioning. And now, like, I don't get to audition as much anymore, but isn't that the way? But he just had this feeling. And so it's like, those people show up. I mean, that's kind of a crazy situation, but I had a version of that kind of with Jurassic World, where it was a little like, you for no particular reason, and nope, you don't have to do a stitch of a thing. Like, it's gonna be you. So it's that happens, I guess, every decade. And it's amazing. And here's this person who's like in large part responsible for the beginning of my career. And honestly, thank God it wasn't my dad, for my own ego. Or something.
We're almost out of time, but I want to
Oh my gosh, that was a
couple quick questions from the audience. From Julia, what is your favorite project you've worked on?
The first thing is I was just like, The Help. Like, that was like my thought. I mean, everything has been really fun. This has been my favorite character I've ever played, and my favorite experience, kind of like, there was this very special collaboration that happened, like, with Joe and I. Like, we're both very happily married, everything's good, but we're sort of like, it's like a soulmate thing, like a creative, like soulmate thing. And that was like insanely fun, unbelievably fun. So it's helping that, and then like Jurassic, and then The Village in the beginning. Those are the faves.
All right, last question. I just have to ask this. From Lisa Thornbloom. Beautiful performance, first of all, she says. I have a cat named Pancakes and was stunned to hear the reference to pancakes in the episode. I thought I had the only one. So when did you shoot this? Hopefully my pancakes came first. And now there will be a slew of cats named Pancakes.
Okay, so we shot this. I turned 35 the day that we shot on the quad bike, and I was like being thrown off the quad bike into the muddy pond, and then needed to like carry my suitcase over my head like Vietnam. Like, that was my 30th birthday, 35th birthday, and so that was last year. So that's when we shot it.
And how old was Pancakes? Is Lisa out there?
So Pancakes, we're like, let's work this out. Let's work this out.
I think Pancakes came first because you shot this in 2016, right?
Yeah, I think yes.
Yeah, so
there was kind of like there was a deep cosmic connection. Something very Black Mirror-ish happened.
And on that note, I'm going to thank Bryce Dallas Howard for joining us.
Guys, thank you. Cool. Thank you so much, guys.